Ο φρουραροχός της Καστοριάς τραβούσε τα μαλλιά του σαν ήρθανε τα ταρκικά στην περιφέρεια.
Okay, welcome back, friends, comrades. Welcome back. I'm here with Dr. AJ Lyoun. Floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. He's got the truth for you and me.
I don't know what that means, Odysseus, but okay. All right.
It sounds good.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds like something that Muhammad Ali should have said and probably did say.
Yeah.
He floated like a butterfly and stung like a bee. He was good. He was good.
Yes.
Which is actually appropriate you bring him up, as it turns out.
Yes.
Given the fact that he was absolutely pilloried. His world title was removed from him, Muhammad Ali, when he refused to be inducted into the military during the Vietnam War. And he said, in actually no uncertain terms, in public, it can be the guys who listen to this or can Google it, or we can even put it on. He said in no uncertain terms that no Vietnamese person had ever called him a nigger, that no Vietnamese person had ever tried to do violence on him, that it was, in fact, he was now speaking to a bunch of white reporters. It was, in fact, you, he said to them, and the government of the U.S. that did this to me. I'm not going to go fight for the U.S. government in a war that in Muhammad Ali's eyes was wrong. And in fact, in a war that was an illegal war of aggression, not unlike a war in Iraq, not unlike other wars that the U.S. has been involved in. So it's interesting because at the same time that Muhammad Ali is taking his stance and paying mightily for it,
right.
There were demonstrations on campuses throughout the United States and throughout the world, actually, against the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. We were a small part. I mean, believe me, nothing fancy, nothing big, a minor cog. But we were all called dupes, fools, stupid, communists. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand the complexity of the issues. And on and on and on by, at the time, the talking heads in the press, on TV, and even by politicians. And the only reason to bring that up now, of course, is we did a couple episodes ago on scholasticide that was being perpetrated sort of as a piece of the genocide that's being perpetrated by Israel on the Palestinian people, on the Gazans. Right. And part of that scholasticide, is the murder and the selecting out and murder of teachers and professors, deans, physicians, nurses, the blowing up of every university in the Gaza Strip, the destruction of something, I believe, my number may be off a bit now, but something like 70% of all the schools, non-university, elementary and high schools in the Gaza Strip, using the other ones as command posts. That report that we did coincided, I believe, with the beginnings. I mean, there have been stirrings of support for the Palestinian people on our campuses for a while, but it coincided with some of the actions at Columbia that were then put down very aggressively by the New York police at the behest of the president of Columbia University. Again, this is a woman who is Egyptian, and who is the president of the university. Now, you would say, I don't mean to be tangential, but if we can just be a little tangential, it merely points to the issue, which I've made probably 10,000 times, that it's not gender, And it's not skin color, and it's not ethnicity that makes a person the person you want to be around. I mean, those things, of course, matter because diversity really does matter. But what matters is what's in their heart and what's in their head. That is to say, the ideology the worldview that they have. And clearly, the president of Columbia University's worldview is a corporatist. I'm responsible to the donors, not to my students or my faculty.
Right.
And we saw some very serious, very aggressive behavior by the New York police. Again, not surprising. The New York police are I mean, I don't want to
Brutal.
overstate it. Well, they are brutal, and there are. I know there are. I know there are decent folks who are cops and want to be cops because they're decent folks, but there are way too many brutal thugs who make up that force and who are just all too happy to use their brutality in service to a foreign country. That is to say, Israel. The president of Colombia called them in. Since that event, there have been demonstrations, sit-ins, camp-ins at multiple universities. I believe it's some 120 throughout the country, and there is now throughout the world in support of the Palestinian people. I mean, this matters. Just this morning, I read a piece. I'm sorry to say, and I'm embarrassed to say, my wife would of course laugh at me if I said this, but I spend a little bit too much time on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. It's Twitter, full stop. And this morning I read a piece by Hillary Clinton that argued, I mean, she stated, wasn't an argument, that the students who are protesting not only don't know what they're talking about, they don't know anything about Palestine, and they don't know anything about U.S. history either. That level of stupidity that Hillary Clinton exhibited is the same level of stupidity that was exhibited, frankly, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, name it, from the Vietnam War through the wars against Central America, through the illegal Iraq War. I mean, multiple illegal wars that our government has been involved in. The talking heads, the people who are supposedly the, quote, adults in the room, like Hillary Clinton. Although oddly enough, Hillary was a young kind of protesting student when she was a youngster. I guess she forgot all about that. But the same thing that she is saying about our young brothers and sisters, and not so young brothers and sisters on campuses now and elsewhere, both in the United States and out, was being said about us 50 years ago. It's important for our student colleagues, our student comrades, our faculty colleagues and comrades to remember, if they don't know, that what's being said about them and done to them was done 50 years ago and more, over and over and over. The police, in service to, in this case, big donors on a campus, or on multiple campuses in our country, and in service to, frankly, genocide being perpetrated by a country that's called our ally, Israel.
Right.
And again, it is important to recognize it. And one of the things that strikes me about all of this is sort of a long view. I'm just finishing W.E.B. Du Bois' Black Reconstruction, which I don't have it in front of me now. I think published in the 30s, 20s. I can't quite remember. But he takes a long look at Reconstruction after the Civil War. And it is a book worth reading for anybody about American history. A little difficult to read because his style of writing is the style of, the old guys. But it's worth looking at. And it's a different era, but it's worth reading. And one of the things that struck me when I saw it and ties into what we're talking about now is, and forgive me if it seems a little tangential. I don't think it is, but he talks about not immediately after the Civil War, 1865, but 68, 69, 70, when things were still in flux. The Reconstruction as we think about it, was sort of not quite in place. There was a possibility for poor whites who had no land at all in the South, working class whites in the North, and the newly freed blacks to join together. The southern plantation owners, while they still had power, they didn't have much in the way of money. Northern industrialists had plenty of money and industrial capacity, but the Civil War had just been won through the blood, sweat, and tears of working class men who were in the military at the time. There was a moment when the trajectory of the United States could have been changed had it been possible,
right?
And it was possible for working class African Americans and whites, actually men and women, because there were some folks who recognized the fact that it has to be everybody, not just men, joined together and stood. And we actually could have kept the northern industrialists from essentially taking over our country, which is exactly what's happened today. Money interests have literally run the country today.
And the southern planter class from re-entrenching themselves too, because
well, you're right, and they re-entrenched themselves not precisely the same way, but they united with northern industrialists differently. But because of Jim Crow, Jane Crow, they managed to completely exclude our black brothers and sisters from political, economic, civic, civil life for another basically 100 years, until Lyndon Johnson's Civil Rights Act of, I believe it was 1964, 1965, I remember. But there was that moment, and it was lost. And again, you could say legitimately, well, okay, fine, that's nice to know, but who cares? I mean, not who cares, but so what? Today, we've got other issues. It's true, but the decisions we make about who we ally with and how we ally with them, about what we say and how we say it, have implications for now, but also for what's going to happen in the reasonably near future. Just as during Reconstruction, the decisions made by a very few people, actually, quote, leaders, unquote, of syndicate movements or working class movements, who said, I don't want to hang out with blacks. I don't think they're really human. I mean, there weren't many. There were more people who said, we are together stronger than apart. But there was enough people with power who kept that union from coming together that we actually ended up with what we know, right? Which is the horror of post-Reconstruction South, and the loss of working class rights in the North as well. I mean, terrible stuff that happened. So I think it matters. So a lot of words to say. That is a book that's worth looking at. Our listeners, if they have a chance, should get it, spend time with it. Again, a little challenging to because of the structure of the English, the way he writes, but a very, very fine.
You get used to it.
You get used to it. Yeah.
So let's give the outline, the rough outline of what's thinking about somebody watching this in the future or whatever, where we're at right now with the protests on the campuses is there's about 100 campuses across the universities across the United States, and a further 20 or so internationally that have now gotten have started encampments and sort of running protests against the genocide in Gaza that Israel is perpetrating.
Well, say, is that number up to date? I thought it was closer to 200 total. I may be wrong.
You're probably right. That was a couple days ago, and it keeps going up exponentially.
Yeah, okay. It's a fair number. It's a fair number, and
it's quite a few. Even my local. Let's see, when was this? That was the 7th. No, yeah, that was days ago now. So yeah, it has grown, and it just keeps, people keep adding to it. Right. It is phenomenal, great, wonderful to see. And then, of course, that has been met with just truly astonishing brutality. And that's, I don't want to, we don't of course want to distract from the atrocities being committed against the Palestinians in Gaza, and neither do the students. However, it is quite shocking, as a matter of fact. And part of what you and I had talked about is that not only is this shocking and horrifying, but there are parallels, parallels I wasn't around for, to the earlier resistances against the Israeli treatment of the Palestinians, um, largely at our behest. But anyway, so and that's kind of part of what we wanted to talk about, I think, and just to, of course, state our solidarity with the students, the wonderful work that they're doing, the courageous, um, protests that they're engaged in, and they're sort of recentering of the genocide into the public discourse. I mean, they make it harder and harder to ignore. Of course, people are slandered, and they say, oh, it's, even though that it's, of course, a lot of Jewish organizations doing this, that that it's somehow anti-Semitic, even though there's Jews celebrating Shabbats and whatever.
Right.
And then that it's violent, which it is not. There's been really no violence except for the violence that's been perpetrated against them, to the point of tear gas and rubber bullets and pepper spray and all this sort of stuff.
Well, and rubber bullets.
Brutal
It's brutal. And rubber bullets, remember, are rubber coated, steel cased cartridges. I mean, they can kill, and they can put out eyes for sure. They can kill. So you're right. This is important, but I don't think it. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying about not wanting to take away from with the terror that's occurring in Gaza right now in Rafah, and it is. But I don't think to comment on this does take away from it. In fact, the Palestinians have over and over.
Agreed.
There's a handful of video clips with the Palestinian people saying, "Thank you for doing this. This matters to us. You see us. You hear us." And what's first of all, I'm going to say, as someone who's was once a 21-year-old and who's now 50 years older than that, I am prouder of those students than it's possible for me to say in words. It almost brings me to tears. I mean, demonstrations, tent camps won't change the world, but they are important as a statement of solidarity. And it's our Jewish brothers and sisters, our non-Jewish brothers and sisters. It's Muslims, it's non-Muslims, it's socialists, it's atheists. These are people who say no to the worth of a human life. Shouldn't matter on the tint of your skin or the accent you have. And they are standing up, and they're standing up in a way that puts them at some risk. I mean, it may only be financial and job, but only financial and job is a big deal. It's a big deal. I mean,
there's been there's been a lot of, there's been a lot of injuries. Even at my local college, they cracked the head of some poor Palestinian professor here.
Yes. Oh, and that's a good point too. It's not just students; it's faculty and staff as well. I mean, you're right. There are serious injuries. Obviously, it's not the same as genocide, but this is a big deal. This is also what was done 50 years ago. I mean, my mind goes back to, although I wasn't on those campuses, Kent State and Jackson State in 1970 when the students were killed. I mean, the National Guard came in and they simply went wild. They started firing. Nobody.
What were they protesting there? Give me the
1970
short,
Vietnam War.
Elevator pitch.
1970 Vietnam War, and National Guard was called in. The National Guard used live ammunition and murdered at Kent State 4, and I believe at Jackson State another 3. I may have that number off, but nobody was held accountable. Nobody paid a price for that. The so-called organs of law and order, our military, National Guard, simply went wild on our students in that era. So when fools, and they are fools, they are utter fools, like Elon Musk, for example, who call for bringing National Guard onto campuses, right? Or bring on
Right.
these heavily armed police, which is effectively the same thing. They are setting the scene for our brothers and sisters to be murdered by these cops who will pay no price. Cops who are, by the way, I will point out, there's a certain part of me that just it grates on me to even say this. Again, don't mean to be tangential, but for 15 years, I was the medical director of Gainesville Fire Rescue here in Gainesville, Florida. And during those 15 years, I worked very closely with the Gainesville Police Department. In fact, we set up what was called the SWAT medical team for the Gainesville Police Department. It hadn't existed before. The police wanted it. If somebody was hurt, what would happen is there would be an event. Fire rescue ambulances would stage maybe a mile away from the event. And if someone got hurt, whether it was a quote bad guy or a quote good guy, we were pretty far away. So we trained medics to go in with the SWAT team so they could take care of anybody who needed to be taken care of. And, and obviously you can criticize all sorts of things about what we did, but the thought was it would help both the police and it would help the citizen who had gotten in the way or who was a quote bad guy unquote or whatever. What's interesting, and the reason it grates on me so much is not precisely that fact. The reason it really grates on me is the guy who was the commander of the SWAT team. He was Gainesville's divided into districts, and his district was where the SWAT team was. I won't say his name, but his first name was Richard. And I liked him. I mean, he was good. He called me up. I was at the hospital one day. He called me up and he said, I want to thank you for what you did. This helps us. It helps the citizens of Gainesville. And I just want you to know, and these are his words. I remember this like it was yesterday. I want you to know that your family, anything you ever need, your family. I thanked him. And a little while later, I don't remember the time exactly, our youngest son, who is now an orthopedic surgeon in Virginia, but who was one of the leaders, founders, organizers, participants, I don't remember, of the high school students against the Iraq War, was marching in Gainesville with his colleagues, partners, comrades, and a bunch of frat thugs came around, pushed him down. I mean, they didn't hurt him. Took the American flag he had, pushed him around. There was a cop, mirrored sunglasses, arms crossed, I don't know, 30 feet away, who just stood there and watched, just like is happening today on the campuses when, for example, the cops went in to break up peaceful demonstrators, but when paid Zionist, possibly ex-IDF military guys went in and started hurting them, throwing things around, pushing them around, hitting them, the cops did nothing. Well,
right in front of them, firing fireworks into the crowd.
Yes, right in front of them. So the story, I know this is a little bit tangential, but so I called Richard up. I called him, the commander. Mm-hmm. I said, Richard, I said, this is, he knew who I was. And I said, you told me we were family, that we were family. I said, my son, and I just told him this, and I told him the story. I said, I don't expect your guys to agree with everything that I do or my kid does or anybody does. Who cares if they agree? We're supposed to be a republic, a democratic republic. We're supposed to believe in the freedom of speech. And your guy watched my son. He couldn't know it was my son, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Every one of these guys is my son. Could be. Every old woman or old man is my parent. Could be.
Right.
He watched them get pushed around, kicked around, and did nothing. Richard, what gives? I thought we were family. Well, he didn't have an answer, and of course he couldn't have an answer, and I put him on the spot. And I meant to. I mean, not,
for you.
Because it's not, but it was, yes, it was because it was my son, right? Who I loved at the time and still love and worried about, right? But it was also, it could have been any kid, and any kid could have been my kid. Any student could have been one of my students, and how would they ever know? It's like the, it's either justice for everybody or there's no justice. It's, all in or no one's in. That's the way it works. And that is not what we're seeing. That's not what we saw in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. That is not what we're seeing today. And it is dramatically, dramatically dangerous. The times are much more dangerous. We have an election coming up in which I believe, literal, non-ideological, but sort of fascist Trump stands a good chance of being reelected. The guy is a thug. He will surround himself with thugs who are extremely dangerous. And Joe Biden, who, just a Paul from the past, is the guy who's going to run against him. And he is doing everything he can to lose this election, to alienate the people who elected him.
Yeah,
and
it almost seems like he's... Go ahead. Sorry.
His big donors, including this guy, Haim, who's just sent him a note. I read the note that was sent to him today. Haim is I believe I got his name right. He's a big movie guy in L.A. He's an American Jewish / Israeli guy, I think. I don't know what passports he carries, but a big supporter of Israel. I mean, okay, that's what he does. It's fine. A billionaire, and he pushes a lot of money into the Democratic Party, and he sent Biden a note that said, you can't withhold weapons to Israel. You can't do that. I mean, yeah, yes, Biden, you should have been doing it before. I'm glad you're doing it. If you're doing it now, I'm not sure I believe it. But this, we will, the students, I guess the last thing I'll say about this, the students will be, as we were, vindicated, whether it's 2 years from now or 10 years from now, it doesn't matter. They will be. The talking heads, the fools, utter fools, New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, not all of them. There are some really good and smart people on those stations who are opposed to these demonstrations and who belittle the efforts of the students and faculty to stand for justice. They will be proven again to be wrong. Now, that may not cost them anything, usually doesn't, and it may cost the students everything, but we will once again, I think, be shown to be right, that this is a genocide, no matter how you slice it, that this is being perpetrated by us, the United States, and Israel. Israel could not do it without our support, and that of the Germans and the French, but mostly us. And we are utterly bankrupt, wrong, morally bankrupt. It is, and of course I said this would be the last thing I say, I lied. And when I was just in the hospital, just last week, before this last big tranche of aid goes to Ukraine and Israel.
Yeah.
I had another one of my patients who could not get their insulin. Diabetics. We have a lot of diabetics in the area.
Right.
They couldn't afford it. They can't get it. We can afford to send tens of billions of dollars multiple times in a year to fight wars that simply shouldn't be fought. Yes, there are issues. Yes, they can be talked through. Yes, they can be solved. Instead, what we're doing is we are fighting. We're destroying the climate, we're destroying our economy, and we're destroying our people as well as the people in those countries.
Right.
What our students and faculty are doing is really very important, and I just completely support them.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with you. It is vitally important. It is doing something. It is working. If you're a student out there, and you're listening to this, or if you whatever, no matter who you are, if you're standing up for Palestine, it is helping. You are doing something. Stand strong. Hold the line. It is a hard time to speak up, but what you're doing is important. It matters to us here, to the people to your comrades who are also fighting for Palestine, and it matters to the people in Palestine as well. I mean, you see there's these images of and from people I've talked to, the people painting on their tent, or spray painting their tents saying thank you students and stuff. It means it means something. And this during
Yeah.
a time when Rafah is being, despite all of the hullabaloo and talk of, oh, Rafah's not going to be invaded, that they are, in fact, they shuffled everybody into this, one city, Rafah, and now they're, invading it and bombing it and clusters, dropping cluster bombs on it. This is a densely packed refugee camp. I've got a friend there, and it's like they don't sleep at night. They don't, they try,
I hadn't heard that
because that's when
cluster
they start.
munitions were being used. Are cluster munitions being used there as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like anything. They've killed so many of the journalists that it's hard to know exactly what's going on. But that was the word that I had heard. They either that or successive strikes. I'm wondering.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people our student colleagues who are interested, who hear this, we could bring them on as guests as well to
Yeah,
talk about their
yeah,
experience, right? I mean, we
it's a
could
great idea.
we could do that as well.
Yeah,
But it's as well as if we've got internet connection, we could do the same with some of our colleagues in Palestine.
mhm.
But I think you're right. It does matter, and it's just have to restate it again that what is being done by our student and faculty and staff, brothers and sisters, the youth of our country, is critical. It was 50 years ago, remains so today, and I can't but applaud them. If I could do something more than that, I would. I can't but applaud them.
Yeah, yeah. If you're out there and you're listening, you could. I mean, if you got one of these, oh, and high schoolers. Now high schools are joining in. So right on to them. And whoever you are, any student in the U.S. or any person, do it. You can also, get a hold of, stop by your local encampment if you have one, and see if they need anything. I don't know, bring them some food or just cheer them on.
Yeah.
And if you follow the students, if you kind of get in touch with these guys, you can kind of see when the crackdowns are coming, and at those times it can be helpful to have more eyes on
Right,
them.
and they can connect with us on the website, and we can talk with them and see if we want to
Yeah,
have some of them to come and talk on one of the
yeah,
future sessions.
hell yeah, yes, absolutely. So
Well,
until next time, I guess. You think we covered it all? Did we
I
tag
think
all our
so.
bases?
I
Okay,
think
cool.
so. I think we did. I think we did.
I
Yeah.
think so.
It's important. I think the only thing we may not have mentioned, which I
Yeah.
don't know if we mentioned, is the thuggery of our militarized police. I mean, those guys are not all of them, but a
Mhm.
good number of the large city police forces are trained by the Israeli military.
Right.
So it is not surprising that they use some of the same tactics that the Israelis use against Palestinians and against their own people who are protesting against the war in Israel. There are some, that's for sure. The scenes
Yeah.
coming out of Tel Aviv of the cops just beating the holy sweet Jesus out of these Israeli protesters, especially families of hostages.
Right.
The families are saying, just make a deal, bring our hostages home. And again, we haven't perhaps spoken enough about this. I mean, there is, I mean, while I might understand what Hamas was doing when they took hostages, there's no excuse to take civilians, men, women, children, as hostages. I'm sorry. And there's no excuse for the Israelis to have 3,000 men, women, children in their prisons, many on no charges. About 1,000 are kids who are under, I believe it's 18 years of age. I mean, release all the hostages and let's start talking. I mean, it's the key. I mean, again, I believe we have said this.
Yeah.
The Hamas breaking out of the concentration camp.
Concentration camp. Yeah.
That's a plus, not a negative. Them taking on the Israeli military, that's what militaries do. That's a plus, not a negative. Killing people who have surrendered, no. Civilians, killing them, no. Those are crimes. I'm sorry. As much as we support the right of the Palestinians, you can't do war crimes. I'm sorry.
Right. Right. And a lot of that is overblown. I mean, there was just another thing came out that at that rave or whatever, it in fact was the IOF that the freaking gunships were
Yeah. Yes. No.
strafing
That will
you know.
that will become clearly.
Sorry,
No,
not to
it's true.
distract.
No.
Yes.
That part is true, the mass rape story is nonsense. That's been debunked. It's still
Nonsense.
used. But
Baby is
but
nonsense.
but as has been said by people wiser than me, in every conflict in which men carry arms, women have been abused. Absolutely true.
Sure.
But a system of mass rapes on purpose, I'm sorry, that's nonsense. So,
Yeah.
but
No,
we're the
in
only
fact, there hasn't been a single credible
there's not.
account of a rape. And there
Yeah.
wasn't time. This was happened very short period. Anyway, whatever. But that's
The
beside the
point
point.
only is we stand for humanity and justice for all.
Yes.
Doesn't matter which
Oh,
side you're on, right? And so that's the last thing I would say. Anyway, okay,
yeah,
that's it.
absolutely, man. I mean, it's just like so. Yeah, that is the backdrop, and these people are. I saw, there's like, uh, I mean, because only it is 90% of the populace of Israel is behind this and thinks and some 40% thinks they should be doing
90,
worse.
97%. It's 3% who
97%.
thinks.
Yeah,
No,
three. So, but
it's
that
terrible.
3% is pretty darn courageous, and
Hmm.
they were
Hmm.
laying down in front of the tanks
Yeah,
and stuff, and I mean,
yeah,
clearly these guys will run you over. It's
yeah.
incredibly
No,
courageous.
there are some. I mean, I'm blocking on his name. There's a guy, a historian, Ori. I'm sorry. No, not Ori. No, I forgot. Historian. I read his work. He is just an amazing, thoughtful, generous, kind, brave man. Amita Haas from Haaretz, Levy from also a writer for Haaretz. I mean, there are some incredibly brave, good
Yeah,
people in that
Miko
country.
Peled. Yeah,
Oh, Miko, I mean, goes without saying.
he's a good dude.
Miko Pellet for sure. Yeah, he's a cool dude. Lives in San Diego, uh,
Oh, really?
um,
Nice.
or at least lived. I don't know where he lives now. But anyway, so I think we've covered everything for now. Okay, man.
Yes,
So
my
you'll
man.
update
All
this
right,
and get our. It'll be the same episode, right? With a
got it.
trailer or what?
I'll just do it as an
Or do it
addendum
a
or
separate one?
another episode. I don't know. I
Okay.
mean, make it
Okay. And
11. I don't know.
you had some poetry stuff you were going to put on the last one, but it
Yes,
wasn't
I've
there.
got it recorded. I'm just gonna put it out
You just
now.
have to
Yeah.
put it.
Hmm.
Dude,
Hmm.
get an
Hmm.
assistant. What's the deal with you?
I know. I was thinking about sending it off. I mean, it costs a little bit of money, but it wouldn't hurt to just that way we could just boom, boom. Don't have to wait for me
Yeah.
to have
Well,
time to.
just so you know, of course, nothing will ever come of it. But I sent uh, Mehdi Hassan a note
Oh
and
yeah,
saying you need to look at our podcast. You might want to have us once a month on. He hadn't responded. He probably never
yeah.
will respond, but
Oh
it
yeah.
might happen. You never know.
Why not?
You never know.
Why not?
Right.
Why not?
Okay.
I love it. I
Okay,
love it,
man.
and I love you, man.
Love
I
you, man.
love you, Uncle
Talk to you
Joe.
soon, sweetie.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
give my love to the family. We'll talk
Will
soon.
do. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So that's it. That's all we got for you today. That's all we got for you today. This has been Comrade Uncle. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Give us a review. We love it. We love it. Send us an email. Send us a message. Love to hear from you. Tell your friends. Do whatever. Do all the things. And keep supporting Palestine. Keep fighting for what is right and truth and justice in the world, and a free Palestine. I hope that one day soon, there will be peace and justice, well, throughout the world, but especially in Palestine, and most especially in Gaza. I've got a friend there that is, if you got a couple spare bucks to throw her way, she's awesome, sweet person who is in Rafa right now with her kids, and if you got a couple bucks to throw her way, I'll throw a link in the show notes. Um, or any way that you can help, whether it's supporting your students, getting to a protest, saying something, post, just keep talking about it, keep fighting, don't give up, don't get discouraged. It is hard. I know you feel alone, and some of you truly are alone. I mean, you may be outnumbered in your family and in your social circle, but know that there's other people out there. You have comrades like my comrade uncle and yours, like comrade nephew. We're behind you. You're not alone. This is the path of sanity and humanity, and we will win because we have to. Um, and they may beat us down, they may fight against us, but this is the path to what is right. And there is there is there's hope, uh, even as hopeless as we might feel at times, and especially want to say that to our comrades in Palestine as well. You guys, we won't forget about you. We won't stop. We're not going to give up on you. We will never stop fighting until Palestine is free. One thing we didn't touch on, I forgot to mention, Biden had talked about, has released recently this just horrific statement, calling, words like intifada, anti-Semitism, calling the protests violent. They're not. Intifada means like a shaking off. It's not. It is. It's a call for liberation, not for the destruction of Israel or anything. So anyway, I just wanted to get that in. It is not anti-Semitism. It is not hate speech to call for an end to genocide or to call for peace. That is insanity. So just know, comrades, that you are not alone. And if you got a little extra time, come on, give us a little thumbs up, give us a review, like, subscribe, whatever, or say hi, because we love to hear from you. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, stay strong, and power to the people, and free Palestine. See you guys.
Stamattina mi sono alzato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Stamattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invaso. Oh partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. E se io muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire, e seppellire lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fior. Tutte le genti che passeranno, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E le genti che passeranno ti diranno che bel fior. E questo è il fiore del partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. Questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. Questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per